Your sister deserves it, my parents said. They left him everything: the house, the money, the future. A month later, Mom texted, "The mortgage is due." I simply replied, "My name is Sarah, and this is about how my parents' favoritism toward my sister Jessica came back to bite them in the most spectacular way possible." Growing up in suburban Chicago, I was always the responsible one. While Jessica was out partying, failing classes, and getting into trouble, I was studying hard, working part-time jobs, and trying to make my parents proud. Not that it ever seemed to matter. Jessica was their golden child, beautiful, charming, and somehow always managing to talk her way out of consequences. The pattern started early. When Jessica crashed Dad's car at 17, I had to give up my college fund to help pay for the damages because family comes first. When she dropped out of college junior year to pursue her artistic dreams, I was told I needed to take out extra student loans because they'd already spent my education money supporting her journey of self-discovery. I graduated with a degree in accounting and a mountain of debt while Jessica bounced from one failed venture to another: a photography studio that lasted 6 months, a boutique that went bankrupt within a year, and countless other schemes that always ended with Mom and Dad bailing her out. But the real kicker came when I was 28 and Jessica was 26. Our grandmother passed away, leaving behind her beautiful Victorian house in Oak Park and a substantial inheritance. According to the will, everything was supposed to be split equally between Jessica and me. That's when my parents stepped in with their brilliant idea. "Sarah, honey," Mom said during that awful family meeting at their kitchen table, "you're so successful and independent. You have your accounting job, your own apartment. Jessica really needs this opportunity to get back on her feet." Dad nodded along enthusiastically. "Your sister deserves it. She's been struggling, and this could be her big break. The house would give her stability, and the inheritance could fund her next business venture." I stared at them in disbelief. "Are you seriously asking me to give up my inheritance?" "We're not asking," Mom said firmly. "We're telling you this is what's best for the family. Jessica needs this more than you do." The manipulation was masterful. They made me feel guilty for even wanting what was rightfully mine. They painted me as selfish and greedy while positioning Jessica as the victim who needed rescuing. After hours of arguing, guilt-tripping, and emotional manipulation, I finally caved. I signed over my rights to the inheritance. Jessica got everything: the gorgeous Victorian house worth $800,000, plus $400,000 in cash and investments. I got a pat on the head and "We're so proud of you for being the bigger person." The next few years were tough. I watched Jessica flaunt her inherited wealth on social media while I struggled to pay off my student loans. She renovated the Victorian house with expensive fixtures and furniture, threw lavish parties, and seemed to be living her best life. Meanwhile, I was eating ramen noodles and working overtime to make ends meet. But here's the thing about Jessica: she never learned how to manage money because she never had to. Our parents always cleaned up her messes, so she never faced real consequences for her poor decisions. About 3 years after receiving the inheritance, the cracks started to show. Jessica had quit her part-time job at a local gallery because she didn't need to work anymore. She was spending money like it was infinite: designer clothes, expensive vacations, a brand new BMW, and countless other luxuries. I started hearing whispers from mutual friends about Jessica's increasingly erratic behavior. She was borrowing money for temporary cash flow issues and making grand promises about paying people back once her big business deal came through. The photography business she'd started with the inheritance money was hemorrhaging cash, and she was using the remainder of her inheritance to keep it afloat. Then came the real estate taxes. The Victorian house, while beautiful, came with hefty annual property taxes, nearly $15,000 a year. Jessica had apparently never budgeted for this, assuming she could just pay them from her dwindling inheritance fund. By year 4, Jessica was in serious financial trouble, but she was too proud to admit it to our parents. She'd built up this image of being successful and independent, and asking for help would shatter that illusion. Instead, she made a decision that would prove to be her downfall. She took out a mortgage on the house. Jessica borrowed $300,000 against the property, using the money to fund her failing business and maintain her lifestyle. The monthly mortgage payments were $2,200, plus insurance and taxes brought her total housing costs to nearly $3,500 per month. This is where the story gets interesting. About 5 years after signing over my inheritance, I had finally gotten my life together. I'd paid off my student loans, gotten promoted to senior accountant at my firm, and managed to save up enough for a down payment on a small condo. I was also in a serious relationship with Mike, a wonderful guy who actually appreciated my stability and work ethic. Meanwhile, Jessica's world was crumbling, but she was still maintaining the facade. Her photography business had officially failed, she'd burned through all the borrowed money, and she was struggling to make her mortgage payments. But she couldn't bring herself to tell our parents the truth. That's when I got the call that changed everything. "Sarah, we need to talk," Mom said, her voice unusually serious. "Can you come over for dinner Sunday?" I should have known something was up. Family dinners had become rare since I'd grown tired of watching my parents fawn over Jessica while treating me like an afterthought. When I arrived at their house, Jessica was already there, looking uncharacteristically subdued. Mom and Dad seemed nervous, exchanging glances before Dad cleared his throat. "Girls, your mother and I need to discuss something important with you." "Here it comes," I thought. "We've decided to move to Florida," Mom announced. "Dad's been offered an early retirement package, and we found a lovely community in Tampa where we can stretch our savings." This wasn't entirely surprising. They'd been talking about retirement for years. "That's great," I said. "When are you thinking of making the move?" "That's the thing," Dad said carefully. "We need to sell the house quickly to make this work financially. The retirement package is generous, but not enough to maintain 2 properties." I nodded, still not seeing where this was going. "The problem is," Mom continued, "we haven't been as financially disciplined as we should have been over the years. Between helping Jessica with her ventures and some unexpected expenses, our savings aren't quite where they need to be." Jessica shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "So we've made a decision," Dad said. "We're leaving the house to Jessica in our will, along with whatever savings we have left." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "Excuse me?" "Now, Sarah, before you get upset," Mom started. "Before I get upset?" I interrupted. "You're seriously doing this to me again?" "It's not about fairness," Dad said. "It's about need. Jessica needs the security more than you do." "Your sister deserves it," Mom added, using those exact words that would later haunt her. "She's been struggling, and this will give her the foundation she needs to rebuild her life." I looked at Jessica, who couldn't meet my eyes. "And you're okay with this?" She shrugged. "I mean, if that's what Mom and Dad want." I was furious, but I was also done. Done being the responsible one who got nothing while my irresponsible sister got everything. Done being guilt-tripped into giving up what was rightfully mine. Done being treated like my hard work and sacrifices meant nothing. "Fine," I said, standing up. "But don't expect me to bail any of you out when this inevitably goes wrong." "Sarah," Mom called after me as I headed for the door. "I'm done," I said without turning around. "Enjoy your golden child." And with that, I walked out of their lives. The next few months were difficult. I had to mourn not just the loss of my future inheritance, but the loss of my family relationships. I threw myself into work in my relationship with Mike, who was incredibly supportive throughout this ordeal. Mike had grown up in a healthy family where parents didn't play favorites, so he was appalled by my parents' behavior. "They're teaching Jessica that she doesn't have to face consequences for her actions," he said. "That's not love, that's enabling." He was right, and deep down, I knew that this pattern would eventually catch up to all of them. I didn't have to wait long. About 6 months after that awful family dinner, my parents moved to Florida. They sold their house for $450,000 and, true to their word, gave Jessica $200,000 of the proceeds while putting the rest toward their new condo in Tampa. Jessica used the money to catch up on her overdue mortgage payments and buy herself some time, but she hadn't addressed the underlying problem. She still had no steady income and was living beyond her means. The $200,000 gift from our parents lasted Jessica exactly 8 months. She used it to make mortgage payments, cover her living expenses, and even took an expensive vacation to Europe because she needed to clear her head and find inspiration for her next venture. By the time the money was gone, Jessica was right back where she'd started, except now our parents were living on a fixed income in Florida and couldn't afford to bail her out anymore. That's when the desperate phone calls started. Jessica called me first, which was surprising since we'd barely spoken since the family dinner. "Sarah, I need to ask you a huge favor," she began, her voice shaky. "Let me guess, you need money." "It's just temporary," she said quickly. "I'm working on a new business plan, and I just need to bridge the gap for a few months until—" "No," I said firmly. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no, Jessica. I'm not giving you money. I'm not co-signing a loan. I'm not helping you refinance your mortgage. I'm done enabling your irresponsible behavior." "But I'm your sister." "Yes, you are. You're the sister who got my grandmother's inheritance. You're the sister who got our parents' house money. You're the sister who deserved it more than I did. So figure it out." She hung up on me. Next came the calls from our parents. Mom tried the guilt trip approach first. "Sarah, honey, your sister is really struggling. I know you two had your differences, but family is family." "You're right, Mom. Family is family. So why don't you help her? You know we can't afford to. We're on a fixed income now." "That sounds like a Jessica problem, not a Sarah problem." Dad tried next, using his stern, authoritative voice. "Sarah, this attitude of yours is very disappointing. Your sister needs help, and you're in a position to provide it. Just like I was in a position to give up my inheritance? Just like I was in a position to watch you give her everything while I got nothing?" That's different. No, Dad, it's not. You taught me that Jessica deserves everything and I deserve nothing. So let her figure this out herself. The calls became more frequent and more desperate over the next few weeks. Jessica tried different approaches: anger, tears, promises to pay me back, even attempting to manipulate Mike into convincing me to help. Mike shut that down immediately. Your family made their priorities clear, he told her. Sarah doesn't owe you anything. But Jessica didn't give up easily. She started showing up at my workplace, crying dramatically in the lobby of my accounting firm and begging me to help her. The first time it happened, I was mortified. My colleagues were staring, and my boss, Margaret, looked concerned. Sarah, is everything okay? Margaret asked after security had escorted Jessica out. I had to explain the situation, which was humiliating. Here I was, a senior accountant at a respected firm, and my sister was making scenes like we were on some trashy reality show. Family dynamics can be complicated, Margaret said diplomatically. But you might want to consider getting a restraining order if this continues. We can't have disruptions in the workplace. The threat of legal consequences finally got Jessica to stop the workplace visits, but she escalated in other ways. She created fake social media accounts to message my friends, telling them sob stories about how I was letting her become homeless out of spite. She even contacted Mike's parents, trying to convince them that I was being unreasonably cruel. Mike's mother, Carol, called me after one of these conversations. Sarah, honey, I hope you don't mind me asking, but Jessica called us yesterday. She seemed very upset about some family situation? I sighed. What did she tell you? Well, she said that you inherited some family money that was supposed to help both of you, and now you're refusing to share it with her when she's in trouble. The manipulation was so smooth, so calculated. Jessica had completely reframed the situation to make herself the victim and me the villain. Carol, that's not what happened at all. I spent the next 20 minutes explaining the real story, how I'd given up my inheritance, how Jessica had squandered everything, how my parents had repeatedly chosen her over me. When I finished, Carol was quiet for a moment. Oh my goodness, Sarah. I had no idea. That girl certainly painted a very different picture. She's desperate, I said. And desperate people will say anything. Well, you can rest assured that we see right through it now. And if she contacts us again, we'll tell her to leave you alone. This was the pattern for months. Jessica would find new ways to try to guilt, manipulate, or pressure me into helping her. She sent me pictures of eviction notices, forwarded me emails from her mortgage company, even had friends call me pretending they were from a charity that was trying to help Jessica keep her home. Each attempt made me angrier, not more sympathetic. She was putting the same energy into manipulating me that she could have used to find a job or downsize her lifestyle. But that would have required admitting she'd made mistakes, and Jessica had never been good at accountability. Meanwhile, I was thriving in ways I'd never experienced before. Mike and I had gotten engaged, and planning our wedding became a beautiful distraction from my family's chaos. For the first time in my life, I was the center of attention for positive reasons, not because I was cleaning up someone else's mess. Mike's family embraced me completely. They were the kind of family I'd always dreamed of having: supportive, encouraging, and fair. His parents treated their children equally, celebrated everyone's achievements, and didn't play favorites. Being around them made me realize just how toxic my own family dynamics had been. You know what I love about your family? I told Mike one evening after a dinner at his parents' house. What's that? Nobody keeps score. Nobody owes anybody anything. You all just genuinely enjoy being together. Mike looked sad for a moment. I wish you'd had that growing up. I have it now, I said. That's what matters. I also received another promotion at work, becoming the youngest senior manager in my firm's history. The $20,000 salary increase felt like validation of all the hard work and sacrifice I'd put in over the years. While Jessica had been living off inherited money, I'd been building actual skills and earning respect in my field. The promotion came with a corner office and a small team of junior accountants reporting to me. For the first time, I had real authority and influence in my professional life. It was intoxicating after years of being dismissed and overlooked by my family. But the professional success also highlighted just how far behind Jessica had fallen. Here I was, advancing in a stable career, while she was facing foreclosure on a house she'd inherited free and clear. The contrast was striking, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. My assistant, David, noticed the change in my demeanor during this period. You seem really happy lately, he observed one afternoon. Like, genuinely happy, not just work happy. I'm happy, I realized. I'm finally living my own life instead of constantly worrying about my family's drama. That must be liberating. It really is. I spent so many years trying to earn my parents' approval and help my sister succeed. Now I'm focusing on my own goals, and everything feels possible. The wedding planning process was another revelation. Mike and I made decisions together, compromising when necessary but always respecting each other's preferences. There was no drama, no manipulation, no one trying to control the process for their own benefit. When it came time to address the guest list, Mike asked the question I'd been dreading. "So, are you planning to invite your parents and Jessica?" I'd been thinking about this for weeks. Part of me wanted them there, despite everything, they were still my family. But I also knew that their presence would bring drama and chaos to what should be the happiest day of my life. "I don't think so," I said finally. "I can't trust them not to create some kind of scene or make the day about Jessica's problems." Mike nodded. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you completely." "You're not disappointed? I know you were hoping we could reconcile before the wedding." "Sarah, this is your decision to make. They've shown you who they are repeatedly. You don't owe them access to your happy moments just because they're related to you. So I didn't invite them. Instead, we had a beautiful wedding surrounded by people who genuinely loved and supported us." Mike's family stepped in to fill the roles my parents would have played, and I felt more loved and celebrated than I ever had at any family gathering growing up. The day after our wedding, I got a series of increasingly angry text messages from Jessica. "I can't believe you got married and didn't even tell us. Mom and Dad are heartbroken. How could you be so cruel? This is all about money, isn't it? You're punishing us because we didn't give you what you wanted." That last message made me laugh out loud. Even now, Jessica couldn't see that this was about so much more than money. It was about respect, fairness, and basic human decency, things that had been missing from our family relationships for decades. I showed the messages to Mike as we sat in our honeymoon suite in Hawaii. "She still doesn't get it," he said, shaking his head. "She never will. Jessica lives in a world where she's always the victim and everyone else is responsible for fixing her problems. Do you regret not inviting them?" I thought about it for a moment, looking out at the beautiful ocean view from our balcony. No. Yesterday was perfect because it was about us and our future, not about managing their emotions or preventing their drama. When we returned from our honeymoon, we found that Jessica had left several items on our doorstep: family photos, some of my grandmother's jewelry that had somehow ended up in her possession, and a handwritten letter. The letter was vintage Jessica, equal parts self-pity and manipulation, with just enough genuine emotion to make me feel guilty if I let it. "Sarah," it began, "I know you're angry with me, but I never meant for things to turn out this way. I've made mistakes, I know that, but I'm still your sister. Family is supposed to stick together through tough times, and I can't understand why you've abandoned me when I need you most. I've enclosed some things that belong to Grandma. I thought you might want them, since you obviously cared more about her stuff than I did. Maybe seeing these will remind you of who we used to be before money came between us. I'm probably going to lose the house soon. I've tried everything I can think of, but nothing is working. I just want you to know that when I'm homeless and struggling, I'll remember that my own sister had the power to help me and chose not to. I hope that makes you happy. Love, I hope, Jessica." The letter made me angry in a way I hadn't expected. Even in what was supposedly an apology, she was still trying to manipulate me. She was still making herself the victim and painting me as the villain. And the passive-aggressive comment about caring more about Grandma's stuff than she did was particularly galling. She'd blown through $1 million inheritance, and now she was acting like I was the materialistic one? But seeing the jewelry did bring back memories. There was my grandmother's wedding ring, a simple gold band that she'd worn for 63 years until my grandfather passed away. There was the pearl necklace she'd worn to every special occasion, and the delicate silver bracelet I'd always admired as a child. "She's trying to guilt you," Mike observed, reading the letter over my shoulder. "I know. But I'm glad to have these things back. Jessica never appreciated their sentimental value anyway." I put the jewelry in my dresser drawer, next to the engagement ring Mike had given me. My grandmother would have loved Mike, I realized. She would have been so proud to see me married to someone who truly valued me. Over the next few weeks, the pressure from extended family members intensified. It seemed like Jessica had launched a full-scale campaign to paint me as the villain in this story, reaching out to every aunt, uncle, and cousin we had to plead her case. Uncle Robert called first. He was Dad's older brother and had always been the family peacemaker. "Sarah, honey, I know there's been some tension in the family lately. Uncle Robert, before you go any further, let me ask you something. Has Jessica told you her version of what happened?" "Well, yes, she mentioned that there was some disagreement about your grandmother's inheritance. Did she mention that she received the entire inheritance, both her half and mine? Did she mention that she also got $200,000 from our parents when they sold their house? Did she mention that she mortgaged a house that was given to her free and clear, and now she can't make the payments?" There was a long pause. "No, she didn't mention those details. Uncle Robert, I love you, but I'm not going to keep having this conversation with every relative Jessica decides to recruit. She made her choices, and now she has to live with them." The conversation with Aunt Patricia was similar, as was the one with Cousin Jennifer. Each time, I had to explain the real situation and watch as they realized how manipulative Jessica's version had been. But the most painful call came from my grandmother's sister, great Aunt Helen. She was 92 years old and had been like a second grandmother to me growing up. "Sarah, dear, I heard about the troubles with Rose's house." Rose was my grandmother's name. "Yes, Aunt Helen. It's a difficult situation. Jessica came to see me last week. She seemed so distraught, poor thing. She said you were letting the house go into foreclosure out of spite." My heart broke a little. Aunt Helen was one of the few people whose opinion truly mattered to me, and Jessica was manipulating even her. "Aunt Helen, that's not what happened. Would you like me to explain the real situation?" I spent 45 minutes on the phone with her, carefully walking through the entire timeline. I explained how I'd given up my inheritance, how Jessica had squandered everything, and how she'd chosen to mortgage the house against everyone's advice. When I finished, Aunt Helen was quiet for a long time. "Oh, Sarah," she said finally. "I'm so sorry. Jessica painted a very different picture." "I know she did. Your grandmother would be so proud of the woman you've become. And she would be heartbroken to see how this has all turned out. Do you think I'm doing the wrong thing by not helping Jessica?" "Honey, there's a difference between helping someone and enabling them. Your grandmother always said that the kindest thing you can do for someone sometimes is to let them learn from their mistakes." That conversation gave me the validation I needed to stay strong in my decision. Meanwhile, my own life continued to flourish. Mike and I had settled into married life beautifully, and we were talking seriously about starting a family. We'd purchased a lovely colonial house in a great school district, and I was excelling in my new role as senior manager. The contrast between my life and Jessica's became even starker when I ran into her friend Amanda at a coffee shop near my office. "Oh my God, Sarah. I haven't seen you in forever," Amanda gushed. "Congratulations on your wedding. I saw the pictures on Facebook, it looked absolutely gorgeous." "Thank you. How have you been?" Amanda's expression grew more serious. "I've been okay, but I'm really worried about Jessica. Has she talked to you lately?" "We're not really in contact right now. She's in such a bad place, Sarah. She barely leaves her house anymore, and when she does, it's to go to bars and drink too much. She's become really bitter and angry about everything." I felt a pang of sympathy despite myself. That's sad to hear. She keeps talking about how unfair life is, how everyone has more than she does, how she deserves better. It's hard to be around her anymore because she's so negative about everything. This was exactly what I'd been afraid would happen. Instead of using this crisis as motivation to make positive changes, Jessica was wallowing in self-pity and blame. "Has she looked for a job?" I asked. "She says she shouldn't have to work because she already paid her dues when she was younger. She thinks someone should just give her money to start another business." The delusion was staggering. Jessica had never paid her dues. She coasted through life on charm and family support, never developing the skills or work ethic necessary to support herself. What about our parents? Are they helping her? They can't afford to anymore. I think they're struggling financially themselves since they moved to Florida. So the safety net was finally gone, and Jessica was having to face reality for the first time in her life. It was unfortunate that she was handling it so poorly, but I couldn't say I was surprised. As I walked back to my office after that conversation, I reflected on the paths our lives had taken. Jessica had been given every advantage: inheritance money, family support, a free house, and had squandered it all through poor decisions and an unwillingness to take responsibility for her actions. Meanwhile, I had worked hard, made sacrifices, and built a stable life through my own efforts. The contrast was stark, and while I didn't take joy in Jessica's struggles, I couldn't help but feel validated in my decision to focus on my own life rather than continuing to enable her destructive patterns. The real test of my resolve, however, was yet to come. Then came the text that changed everything. It was a Wednesday morning in March when my phone buzzed with a message from Mom: "The mortgage is due." I stared at the message for several minutes, processing what this meant. Jessica had apparently missed her mortgage payment, and somehow this had become Mom and Dad's problem. More specifically, it was becoming my problem. I replied with a simple, "And?" My phone immediately rang. "Sarah, you need to help your sister," Mom said without preamble. "No, I don't. She's going to lose the house. That's what happens when you don't pay your mortgage. How can you be so heartless? This is your grandmother's house we're talking about." And there it was, the house that should have been half mine, that I'd been guilted into giving up, was now my responsibility to save. "Mom, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You and Dad decided that Jessica deserved my inheritance because she needed it more than I did. You gave her additional money from your house sale because she deserved that too. And now that she's managed to squander all of it, you want me to bail her out?" "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple. You made your choice. You chose Jessica over me, repeatedly. You taught her that she doesn't have to face consequences because someone will always rescue her. Well, congratulations, you created this monster. Now you get to live with it. Sarah Elizabeth, you listen to me. No, Mom, you listen to me. I'm done. I'm done being the backup plan when your golden child fails. I'm done being treated like I don't matter until you need something from me. I'm done with all of it. I hung up and immediately blocked their numbers. Over the next few days, I got calls from extended family members who'd been recruited to guilt me into helping. Aunt Linda called to tell me how disappointed Grandma would be if I let the family house go into foreclosure. Cousin Mark texted to say I was being selfish and vindictive. I responded to each of them the same way. Jessica inherited the house and chose to mortgage it. That was her decision to make, and now she has to live with the consequences. Meanwhile, Mike and I have found the perfect house for us, a lovely colonial in a great neighborhood with good schools for the kids we were planning to have. We put in an offer and it was accepted. As we were celebrating our new home purchase, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Sarah, please, you have to help me, Jessica sobbed into the phone. I'm going to lose everything. You already lost everything, Jessica. You just haven't admitted it yet. I'll do anything, sign over the deed to you, give you half the house, whatever you want. I don't want the house, Jessica. I have my own house now, with my fiancé, who actually values what I bring to the relationship. But where will I live? The same place you'd live if you'd never inherited that house in the first place, somewhere you can actually afford. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, Jessica. This is what you did to yourself. You had nearly $1 million handed to you, and you blew it all. You mortgaged a house that was given to you free and clear. You quit your job and lived like money was infinite. These are all consequences of your choices. But you're my sister. Yes, I am. And for our entire lives, you've been the sister who got everything while I got nothing. You were the one who deserved it, remember? Well, now you deserve this too. The foreclosure proceedings began in April. Jessica tried several last-ditch efforts to save the house, including attempting to get a reverse mortgage. She was too young, trying to sell it quickly, the market was soft and she owed more than it was worth, and even launching a GoFundMe campaign that raised exactly $347. Throughout this entire process, my parents kept trying to reach me through flying monkeys, friends and extended family who would suddenly call with innocent questions before pivoting to how I really should help my sister. I shut down at every attempt. The most satisfying conversation was with my Uncle Tom, Dad's brother, who called to lecture me about family loyalty. Sarah, I understand you're hurt, but family is forever. You're absolutely right, Uncle Tom. Family is forever. So let me ask you something. In all the years you've known me, have you ever seen me be irresponsible with money? Well, no, but have you ever seen me quit jobs without having another one lined up? No, but that's not the point. Have you ever seen me blow through hundreds of thousands of dollars and then expect other people to bail me out? Sarah, because those are all things Jessica has done repeatedly, while my parents cheered her on and told her she deserved everything. They created this situation by teaching her that actions don't have consequences. Why should I fix what they broke? Uncle Tom didn't have an answer for that. The house went to foreclosure auction in June. It sold for $620,000, which meant Jessica walked away with nothing after the mortgage, penalties, and fees were paid off. But the story doesn't end there. About a week after the foreclosure sale, I got a call from a real estate agent named Patricia Walsh. Ms. Sarah Chen? She said. I'm calling about the property at 847 Grove Avenue in Oak Park. My grandmother's address. What about it? Well, this is a bit unusual, but I represent a client who purchased the property at auction, and they'd like to meet with you. I was confused. I think you have the wrong person. I don't have any connection to that property anymore. Actually, my client specifically asked me to contact you. They mentioned that this house has family significance for you. Curious despite myself, I agreed to meet with this mysterious buyer. The meeting was scheduled for the following Saturday at a coffee shop near the house. I arrived to find a woman about my age with kind eyes and a warm smile waiting for me. Sarah? I'm Jennifer Martinez. Thank you so much for meeting with me. Ms. Martinez, I have to ask, how do you know about my connection to this house? Jennifer smiled. I work in the property records office for Cook County. When I saw this beautiful Victorian going up for auction, I did some research into its history. That's when I discovered it had originally been left to you and your sister, but you'd signed over your rights. I was stunned. You bought my grandmother's house because of me? I bought it because it's a gorgeous property in a great neighborhood, she said quickly. But yes, your story played a part in my decision. I have a sister who's gotten preferential treatment from our parents our entire lives, so I understood what you went through. Okay, I said slowly, but why did you want to meet with me? Jennifer leaned forward. Because I want to offer you the chance to buy it back. I nearly spit out my coffee. What? I paid $620,000 for it at auction. I'll sell it to you for exactly that price, no profit, no markup. You just need to cover the closing costs. I was speechless. After everything that had happened, the house could actually come back to me. But then I thought about Mike, our new house, the life we were building together. Did I really want to be tied to all this family drama? That's an incredibly generous offer, I said finally, but I think I need to let the past stay in the past. I'm building a new life now, and I don't need that house to do it. Jennifer nodded. I understand completely. But let me make you another offer. She slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a check made out to me for $155,000. What is this? Half the profit I'm going to make when I renovate and sell the house, Jennifer explained. I've already talked to contractors, and I'm confident I can sell it for $930,000 after renovations. My costs will be about $620,000 for the purchase price plus $155,000 for renovations. That leaves a $155,000 profit, and half of that should be yours. I don't understand. Sarah, that house was supposed to be half yours from the beginning. Your grandmother wanted you to have it. Just because your family manipulated you into giving it up doesn't mean you should lose everything. I stared at the check, tears welling up in my eyes. Why would you do this for a complete stranger? Because sometimes the universe gives us a chance to right a wrong, Jennifer said softly. And because I think your grandmother would want you to benefit from her legacy, even if it's happening differently than she planned. I took the check. 3 months later, Mike and I used that money plus our savings as a down payment on our dream house, not the colonial we'd originally bought, but a beautiful craftsman-style home with a huge backyard perfect for the children we were planning. On our wedding day 6 months after that, I got a text from Mom, I can't believe you're getting married and didn't invite your own family. I replied, I did invite my family. Everyone who matters to me was there. The aftermath of Jessica losing the house was exactly what you'd expect. She moved back in with our parents in Florida, bringing her drama and financial chaos into their retirement. Within 6 months, she'd run up their credit cards and convinced them to take out a reverse mortgage on their condo to fund her latest business idea. I heard all this through the grapevine, of course. I'd maintained strict no contact with all of them. About a year after my wedding, I ran into Jessica's friend Amy at a grocery store. Amy had always been a bit of a gossip, so I wasn't surprised when she immediately launched into an update on Jessica's life. Oh my God, Sarah, you wouldn't believe what Jessica's been up to, Amy said, practically vibrating with excitement at having an audience. Despite myself, I was curious. What now? Well, she convinced your parents to let her use their house as collateral for some kind of internet business loan. Something about selling handmade jewelry online. But then the business failed, shocking, I know, and now they're at risk of losing their retirement home too. I felt a moment of satisfaction, followed immediately by guilt for feeling satisfied. These were still my parents, after all. That's unfortunate, I said neutrally. The best part is, Jessica keeps telling everyone that you're being vindictive and cruel for not helping the family. She actually told me that you're jealous of her success and that's why you won't help save the house. I had to laugh at that. What success would that be? Right? That's what I said. But you know Jessica, she's always been delusional about her own situation. Amy leaned in conspiratorially. I heard your parents are thinking about moving back to Chicago and asking if they can live with Jessica, since she's living in their condo anyway. The image of my parents, my sister, and all their collective financial chaos crammed into a small Florida retirement condo was almost too poetic to believe. Well, I said, I hope it all works out for them. And the truth was, I really did hope it would work out. Not because I wanted to reconcile with them, but because I wanted them to learn from their mistakes and become better people. I just wasn't going to sacrifice my own happiness to make that happen. As I drove home that day, I thought about how different my life looked compared to a year ago. Mike and I were happy in our beautiful home. I'd gotten another promotion at work and was now making 6 figures. We were planning to start trying for a baby soon. I had a life full of people who valued and respected me. Meanwhile, my family was trapped in a cycle of their own making, dealing with the consequences of decades of enabling Jessica's irresponsible behavior. The final chapter of this story came about 18 months later, when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Sarah? It's Dad. I was quiet for a moment, processing the sound of his voice. He sounded older, more tired than I remembered. What do you want, Dad? I want to apologize. That was not what I'd expected. Okay. Your mother and I. We lost our condo. I didn't respond, waiting for him to continue. Jessica's business loan defaulted, and since we'd co-signed using the house as collateral. He trailed off. We're living with your cousin Mark now, in his basement. I'm sorry to hear that. The thing is, Sarah, We finally understand what you tried to tell us all those years. We enabled Jessica instead of helping her, and we treated you terribly in the process. I felt tears welling up, but I wasn't sure if they were from sadness or relief. We don't expect you to forgive us, Dad continued. And we're certainly not calling to ask for money or help. We just wanted you to know that we see now how wrong we were, and we're sorry. Where's Jessica now? I asked. She moved in with some guy she met online. Left us to deal with the mess she created and moved to Nevada with him. Of course she did. Dad, I said finally, I appreciate you calling to apologize. I really do. But I need you to understand that this isn't just about money or the house. This is about 30 years of being treated like I mattered less than Jessica. This is about being guilted and manipulated every time you needed something from me, but ignored every time I needed support. I know, he said quietly. We were terrible parents to you, Sarah. You deserved so much better. We talked for about 20 more minutes. Dad told me about how they were working with a credit counselor to try to rebuild their finances, and how they were both looking for part-time jobs to supplement their Social Security. He asked about Mike and congratulated me on our recent pregnancy announcement that he'd apparently heard about through the family grapevine. Before we hung up, he said, Sarah, I know we don't deserve it, but if you ever want to have a relationship with us again, we'd like that very much. But only if and when you're ready. I'll think about it, Dad. And I have been thinking about it. Mike and I are expecting our first child in 3 months, and part of me wonders if this baby might be a chance for a fresh start with my parents. Not a return to the old toxic dynamics, but maybe something healthier built on mutual respect and clear boundaries. As for Jessica, I heard through the grapevine that her relationship with the Nevada guy didn't work out, and she's now living in Las Vegas working at a casino. Apparently, she's been telling people that our family disowned her and that she's better off without toxic relatives. The irony is almost too perfect.